Welcome to Transformative Principal, where I help you stop putting out fires and start leading. I am your host, Jethro Jones. You can follow me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. I'm launching a new website, transformativeprincipal.com. You can go there to learn about and join the mastermind. And also, you can go there to learn how to get positive press for your school. What's better than you telling your story all the time? Getting other credible third parties to tell your story for you. Go to transformativeprincipal.com. Once again, that's transformativeprincipal.com. Welcome to Transformative Principal. Today, I am honored and excited to have the great and wonderful Nickie Bellini on the podcast. She's in her 19th year of education, the last 5 of those being a dual language principal. And before that, she was a dual language first grade teacher. So, Nickie, welcome to Transformative Principal. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Jethro. I am thrilled to be here today to talk about one of my favorite things, school.
Well, that is fantastic. I'm excited for you to talk about that also. So you are in the mastermind with me, and so I want to start by talking about the mastermind as a whole. What are you getting out of it? Why is it beneficial to you? What do you think? Let's hear it.
Well, I have been participating in the mastermind for about a year now, and one of the really great things about it is not only do you get coaching from you, Jethro, but you also get coaching from colleagues from across the country. We have a small group of about 3 people right now. And it's so interesting to talk to other elementary principals and listen to their struggles and be like, wait a minute, I had that same issue. I'm so glad you brought that up. So it's really a great opportunity to talk to each other, to problem solve together, and learn from one another. I've learned a ton from my colleagues in the mastermind and from working with you as well.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about you're in the unique Tuesday night group that has all elementary level principals, and my other groups have people from different levels. So what has been your perspective on the challenges that you've brought up and that others have brought up, and how that has helped you in your day-to-day work?
I definitely think sometimes you don't realize a struggle, or you had a struggle and you forgot about it because you kind of worked through that. And it's just really nice opportunity to hear from others and, get ideas and even like get ahead of issues that you might encounter. So it's been really helpful. They're both elementary principals, but in vastly different schools. So it's really interesting to see how a school in Illinois operates versus a school in Alaska or New York or California. And we have many of the same struggles, but at the same time, we have very different ones. And especially going through COVID, that has been super helpful as we've navigated very uncharted waters. So yeah, I think I joined at just the right time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's really powerful for sure. And there are people who are listening right now who have thought, I should join the mastermind. I should look into it. What would you say to someone who's kind of thinking about it? What would your response be?
I would say, being a principal can be a lonely job sometimes, depending on the size of your school. Maybe you do have associate principals. Maybe you do have an assistant principal. I've been working in a pretty small school, so I do have some support, but not continuous support. And a lot of the times you feel like you're on your own to make decisions. So it's really nice to have that core group of people to discuss things that are going on, come up with ideas, share resources. We've shared a ton of resources amongst the different people in the group and really just learned a lot. So I would say, it's almost like having your teacher team, but it's your principal team. So when I was a teacher, it was so valuable working with other teachers and kind of, bouncing ideas off one another, but then you kind of work together and grow an idea together as well. So it's really nice to have that opportunity when I don't have that every day.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say has been the most valuable thing for you in the mastermind, personally?
Personally, I think it's having the opportunity to be super honest with others and to be vulnerable because, you don't want to expose your weaknesses at work, but among this group, you can definitely be vulnerable and really get to the root of the struggles that you're dealing with at work. So that's been really helpful. And knowing that the people in your group, you do such a great job of making sure that it's a good fit of people. And we each get a turn, to share what we're working through and get our spotlights, which is really nice to have. And then we also do the book studies, which that has been really amazing because the books that we do, they're not always geared directly towards education. They're leadership. There's even some philosophy and things like that. Those pieces have really, really made it a nice group. I look forward to being there every Tuesday.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We actually do not do education books, and that's on purpose because I want the difficult process of translating from business, psychology, philosophy, whatever it is, into education speak. And I think that's really an important thing for everybody to have an experience doing and understanding. So I'm glad that you would like that also. So let's talk a little bit about your life, because you used to be a news reporter. So you've moved from being a journalist to being a principal. Tell us about that transition and what that entailed.
Yeah, it was a very interesting journey. So I am from Wisconsin and graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison with an undergrad degree in broadcasting and public relations. So I was going to be a news reporter. That was what my dream was. And I did a couple of internships. And while I love writing, I love being with people, it just did not seem like it was the greatest fit for me. So after I graduated from school, I was pretty far into my degree and couldn't really start over, but I did actually get a minor in Spanish and studied abroad. So I was able to keep up with my Spanish during that time. And that's going to make sense to you in a couple minutes when I tell you exactly how I got to where I am right now. So as I was looking for a job in news reporting, so I was still going to give it a go, I actually started substitute teaching in the district that I grew up in. And the first day that I went to sub in this school, someone found out that I spoke Spanish. And this was a school, it had about 300 kids in the school, and 63 of them were Latino and English learners. And the school was looking for an English learner teacher. And the principal came down to see me, and I thought, oh my goodness, what did I do? Why is the principal coming to see me right now? My first day of subbing, and she said to me, do you speak Spanish? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, fluently? Yeah, I do. Okay, well, hey, I don't know what you're doing right now, but we need an ESL teacher. Would you like to be an ESL teacher? And I said, you know what? I always liked kids. Let's give it a shot. And so I started going back to school. The school actually helped me get a master's degree in education. And so that took about 4 years. So I worked at the school for 4 years while I was going back to school. And in that time, I learned all about dual language. And the school that I was working in did not have a dual language program. It was a pull-out ESL program. And I was the only ESL teacher, and I was the only person in the whole building that spoke Spanish. So I was also the liaison for everything, the translator. Yes, everything. I think I even gave rides to families and things. I did tons of stuff. But it was an awesome experience because I really just learned on the job. It was baptism by fire, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because I truly did discover that education is my calling. And so after I graduated, I decided to pursue a teaching position as a dual language teacher. moved to Illinois during that time and became a first grade dual language teacher where I currently live. And so I did that for about 6 years and then started to, get the administrative itch that I wanted to go in that direction as well. So I kid you not, I would not be sitting here right now if I didn't speak Spanish. So I definitely value Spanish bilingualism. I've seen the benefits for my students and for my own child.
Yeah. So you started out helping kids who were from Spanish-speaking countries learn English, and now you're in a dual language school where you teach whoever comes in English and Spanish. Is that a fair summary?
That's correct. 50% of the class was English speaking, and the other half was native Spanish speaking. So that was awesome as well. Even though I taught first grade, and you wouldn't think there'd be a whole lot of language acquisition happening when the kiddos were only doing a half day in kindergarten. So their first full day experience, full year experience was with us in first grade. And they're like little sponges. They learned so much Spanish and vice versa. Our kiddos were in a great setting to not only maintain their heritage language, but acquire a new language as well.
Yeah, and that's how your school now is currently set up, right? That it's also dual language.
Yeah,
right?
It's a kindergarten, fifth grade dual language.
So this is, this is really powerful because the ability to speak a second language is really, a lot of people think that kids who come from other countries and can't speak English, that they sadly sometimes get treated like they're dumb because they don't speak English, when the reality is having two languages is really a superpower because you can now communicate with so many different people. So I speak English and Russian and a tiny bit of Spanish. And in the mastermind, we actually have 3 principals who all are fluent in Spanish and English, which is really cool. So
that's right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? Yeah. So
then we're going to do it in Spanish. Okay, Jethro, we're going to.
Yeah, I think we should. It'll be awesome. I'll be lost, but that's okay because you all will get it. John Catt Educational supports high-quality teaching and learning by providing publications that are research-based, practical, and focused on the key topics proven essential in today's and tomorrow's schools. The latest John Catt publications include a book whose bold, transformative ideas amaze and infuriate people around the world, according to one reviewer, a title from global leaders in curriculum planning, practice, and retrieval, one book that says stop talking and start doing with regard to teacher well-being, and much more. These books, used by educators of all roles across North America and worldwide, amplify fresh, engaging voices with practical strategies to create transformative change. Learn more in our show notes at jethrojones.com/podcast. But this is a thing where recognizing the power that comes from that, it really can change people's lives for the better. And so what is your perspective on why it's so important to be able to speak another language? And what are the things you've seen that really help kids and adults grow in powerful ways?
Well, it's so funny because I think there is the perspective out there that when you're not proficient in a language that you somehow have a deficit. And really what it is the person looking at that child is just not seeing the other half of the language that child really does have. And it's amazing to see how kids make connections between the two languages, or you're studying a particular concept and just being able to communicate with the student in 2 languages to really figure out what it is they know. That's why I think it's so important to, when you are working with ELs or working with Spanish language learners as well, on the flip side, really making sure that your content that you're teaching, that you're scaffolding language, that you're making it accessible for the kids, and then with assessment, that you're actually assessing the content and not the language. That's a piece that I think sometimes, especially with state testing, I worry about it because I think my kiddos know a lot more than the test is showing them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been my experience also. We had an opportunity to put one of my kids into a dual language program, and then we moved to Alaska, and so we lost that opportunity. But I've always been very interested in languages, and I think you're right about not seeing the other half of the person because you can't access that when you don't speak that language that they speak. And they can. So they have the benefit of being able to access their heritage language and the language they use in their everyday classes at school. What are some of the key components of creating a dual language program that are necessary?
Well, you definitely have to have the population to support the program. You definitely want to have 50% of each population is ideal. If you're a little heavier on the Spanish side in the 50-50 dual English Spanish, that's okay. You really want to make sure that you're staffing it with people who are fluent in Spanish and are also great teachers. And it can be hard to find like special education in Spanish or speech pathologist in Spanish, but those people are so crucial to the student's development. And again, they can tap into both resources for the child in English and Spanish. So it's important to have those makeups so that you've got a true dual language program. I think it's really important to have district administration that values the program. I've seen other programs not get the support that they need. Here, where I currently work, I can tell you there's 100% support for the dual language program. There has been. It's been around for more than 25 years and is also a program that other schools in the area model themselves on. And I do attribute a lot of that success to the fact that when decisions are made at the district level, dual language is never an afterthought. It is very, well thought. How is this going to affect dual language? And we also don't want to create a divide between the monolingual program and the dual language program. And so they've done a really great job of, when they're looking at curricular programs and things, making sure that those programs are equitable for both programs. So I think that's a huge piece as well.
Yeah, in the district that I was in where that dual language opportunity existed, there was great support for that all the way up to the top, to the superintendent. And that really makes a huge difference when everybody gets how important that is. And it included, recruiting out of country teachers to come work in the schools specifically because of so they were trained as teachers in their home country and then came over to teach specifically in that language in the States. And we didn't have a dual population like you're talking about because the goal was to teach the kids the new language, not necessarily to make it equal to what was in the community. So we in our district had Chinese, French, and Spanish, and maybe German. I can't remember, but we certainly didn't have that large of those other those other two populations. We did have a lot of Spanish speakers, but it was really fascinating to see how well they did. My niece went through the French program, and as she grew up, was able to have a French foreign exchange student and then travel to France herself and get those experiences. And that, just opens up your eyes to what is possible of what you can accomplish as a human being by experiencing different cultures and things like that.
Yeah, I think that piece is huge. When I was a junior in college, I decided to study abroad in Sevilla, Spain. And that experience was totally life-changing for me. I was able to go tour around Europe after we were done for the semester and experience how other people think, how other people eat. Of course, that's a huge
yes,
that's
very important.
Yeah, but it definitely shaped my worldview. The way we think here, or the way I think or have thought, is not the only way. There's definitely different ideas, and I think that would be a great thing for many people to experience, to see how the other half lives.
Yeah, for sure. And really more than the other half, because there's a lot more people that don't speak English than as their native language, I should say, than do speak English as their native language. So
I know that's incredible, isn't it? When
it
you think
really
about
is.
it.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about your school right now because you've had some major gains in the culture of your school and even had teachers say that things feel so much better than they used to. So can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done to improve the culture of your school?
hmm Yeah. I mean, we came into a really unique situation with this particular school because it didn't exist as a dual language academy 4 years ago. That's when we started this school. I actually started out in the district as a principal of another school that had a strand of dual language. And after that first year, was able to start this dual language academy and bring together two elementary school strands of dual language that were just operating as singletons in these elementary schools and be able to give teachers colleagues to work with when they hadn't had that opportunity before. And that's even though you're teaching the same grade level, when you're teaching dual language, it's a different animal. And being able to give those teachers that opportunity was huge. And we had to be very deliberate and thoughtful about how we blended the communities of students, how we blended the communities of staff. And it really was a successful blending of the two schools. It's something that I'm really, really proud of. And we brought together some really wonderful people who share the goal of just trying to raise great little human beings that are going to turn out to be fantastic and successful people in the future and bilingual as well.
Double bonus.
Yeah. So I'd say that I started out with a really great crew of people to begin with. We have a lot of shared values here. But then over the years, we have been very deliberate about being vulnerable, I would say, and kind of breaking down the glass that people sometimes put up in front of themselves. And when you're not used to working in a team setting, it can take a little bit of time. You know, people would kind of plan together a little bit in the beginning, but now I would say they're working very collaboratively and they just hadn't had that opportunity before. So they kind of had to learn how that works. But my associate principal and I, we try to do a lot of things here and model vulnerability for our staff. And it's great because I catch people saying, I'm going to be vulnerable right now and say this or do this. And, you know, we've been able to make some really huge gains that way because people aren't afraid. So I think it's crucial as a principal, you obviously set the tone for your building, but creating that psychological safety in your school is huge. So I would say that's been a huge piece over the years. But again, we just have a great group of people who truly care about kids, truly care about them being successful.
Yeah, absolutely. That psychological safety is incredibly important. And I have a blog post about that I'm going to put in the show notes so that people can check out because it really does. When you have psychological safety, it makes it so that you can be your most authentic and best self at work. And it makes it so that you can feel like you can do the best things about yourself, but that you're not being judged for the worst things about yourself. And it's really easy in a school setting to feel judged for the worst things about yourself just by living, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it's important to have that psychological safety there. The last question that I'd like to ask is, what is one thing that a principal can do this week to be a transformative principal like you?
There's so many things, but I think one of the pieces that we can sometimes get away from in the day to day because you're dealing with students, you're dealing with parents, or you've got, you know, some initiative that you're trying to get going, but getting in classrooms and being able to give teachers feedback. That's something that we've been really working hard on this year. Even if it's you're going in for 10 minutes and you write a little note and put that on the teacher's desk and say, hey, you know, I'd love to talk to you about this observation afterward. And then we catch each other in the hallway or before school. And just having those opportunities to really talk about instruction has been huge. And it has allowed, with our focus on being vulnerable, it has allowed us to grow because we've been able to hear feedback and get different ideas, and also value our teachers as professionals because they are so incredibly talented and they have so much to share. I think it's a great benefit of being a principal that you get to see that, and teachers don't get the chance to get out of their classrooms and go next door and see how their colleague is doing. And so it's been really great for us to do more frequent observations of teachers. It's hard. You have to like lock it off in your schedule, but it's so, so important. And it's funny. One of my colleagues, she said, okay, to remind myself to get out of my office and do observations. She writes herself a note that says, is what I'm doing right now going to improve teaching and learning? And I was like, yes, I need to put that on my desk too, because you can get sucked in. And it's so crucial to get out, to be giving that frequent feedback, and then learn from your teachers as well.
Yeah, that's a great question to ask yourself. Is what I'm doing going to improve teaching and learning? That's really powerful. Well, Nickie, thank you so much for being part of Transformative Principal. You are an amazing principal, and I feel so blessed to be able to have seen your growth, your ability, how much you care about your teachers and your students over the last year in the mastermind. It's just been awesome. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your story today.
Thanks, Jethro. The opportunity has been wonderful. Thank you so, so much.